This week, I'd like to look at how we can integrate our bodies, our physical being, and our outer world around us. Many times in our lives, our bodies have often felt alien to us. And this has led, for some people, to have an antagonistic relationship between our inner being, who we feel we are inside, and the physical form, the way we express in this world. This week, we're going to explore how we can have a greater relationship between our inner and outer beings. I came across an article about 6 months ago on a new branch of science called ecosomatics. And so ecosomatics is a movement that recognizes how the experience we have in our own bodies is tied to the environment around us. The phrase was first coined in 1976 by Thomas Hanna, and he helped shift the perceptions of the body, the soma of the body, the experiential body, and how he integrated that with ecology and came up with the term ecosomatics. So again, soma is, we have our physical body, and then we have the experience of our body. And soma is all about the experience. It's that subjective experience. So for instance, if I'm talking about my hands in a physical form, I could describe the color, the shape, the size. But if I'm going to talk about the experience of my hands, I may talk about them tingling or aching or being very flexible or strong. Those would be the experiential aspects of the soma versus the physical aspects of the soma, of the body. So soma is all about how the experience of it is. And so you can see how if we take the experience of our bodies have in the world around us, we come up with that idea of ecosomatics. So again, ecosomatics is about how we interact with our world around us. We think that our bodies are this separate and unique thing. For instance, our skin forms the outside of our bodies, and we can think of our skin as providing a boundary that is separate and distinct from the chair that we're sitting on, or the ground that we're standing on, or even the air around us. But as we come to learn, the skin, which is one of the largest organs in the body, is actually semi-permeable. We expire perspiration through our bodies, so things from inside of our body can reach the outside of our environment. Our skin actually can breathe in air. It can actually take in moisture and nutrients and so forth. When we put hand lotion on our hands, the skin actually absorbs the nutrients in the hand lotion to help our skin become softer. So we think of it as this permeable, separate and distinct thing, but it interacts with the environment all around us. Moisture, temperature enter and exit through the skin, and we experience our world around us with our skin. The other way we experience our world is through our five senses. So we hear, see, taste, touch, smell. These all show us what's going on around us in the world. We can hear a loud, sharp noise and it can startle us. Or we could have our beloved pet laying curled up in our laps asleep, and it just absolutely relaxes us and soothes us. We can get a smell of something that brings back the memories of some other time. Like there's a certain smell of bacon frying that reminds me of my grandmother's house. And it's not all bacon, and it's only certain times, but there's that sense of smell that triggers an emotional response within me. And so we have all these different things that our senses do that help us interact with our environment. We are actually in relationship with everything around us, from the furniture in our homes to our backyards, to the grounds, to the parks, to the streets. We are in relationship with them, and we are interacting with them all the time. And so when we look at it from this point of view, we're actually looking at it from that somatic point of view. It is not having us be separate and distinct parts of biology, but it's actually an integration of the two. And so, we think that nature is this thing out there and we have to go to nature, but nature is all around us all the time. We walk outside into our yards, into our neighborhood, into the park here in the community. We are surrounded by nature, and we are part of nature all the time. We have the elements within us. We have the air, we have the water, we have the earth within us, we have fire. We have all of these cells and microbes and bacteria that are found outside of us are also found within us. And so our bodies, our personal being, this body here, is an inextricable form of our planetary body, of the world around us. Our body is part of a global ecosystem, and it's part of the ecology of the earth. Everything is connected. Our thoughts, we have our thoughts become our words, they become our motivation, the motivation leads us to an action, and so forth. So we are totally integrated with all of the things around us. The temperature outside will affect our mood, especially living here in Las Vegas, we know how the temperature can be extreme. The way that the water at Lake Mead is, we are concerned about that. And so we respond to it in certain ways by using less water here in our valley. We have some of these things that are imposed upon us, government regulations from the water district and so forth. I just bought a new home and found out we can absolutely have no grass, and not that I would want it anyway, but and our pool sizes have been greatly diminished. So just we are responding to our natural world, our world around us, by the way that we behave within our own beings here. So when we begin to shift that point of view that our body is not separate, but is interrelated and part of the natural environment, then we begin to change the way that we look at it. Our health, the way we look at our health begins to change. It's not separate and distinct from the world around us. We begin to see that things are correlating and so forth. And so that we begin to actually broaden our experience of this body and all of the other things in the world, other animals that we inhabit the planet with, the sentient beings of all kinds, and the non-sentient beings, the environment itself, the rocks, the dirt, the mountains, the water, the things that we would not consider to be thinking elements, but yet there's still a life within them. There's still an energy that is coming from them. And when we begin to realize that we are so inextricably linked to the world around us, we begin to change how we think about our bodies. So, the heart of this idea of ecosomatics is a sensory embodiment tied to the ecology around us. It is one that begins to help us realize the stress that we've put on our planet. It encourages us to be more conscientious about our environment. And it helps us to interrelate our bodies with our environment in a broader way. And so some of the practices that we can begin to do for this idea of ecosomatics are pretty simple practices. We do them anyway, but if we're doing them almost unconsciously, if we begin to do them in a conscious exploration of how we are interrelated to the environment around us, we begin to have a greater experience of it. For those of you that may be following our Thursday morning Keeping It Real, I'm talking about ecosomatics all month long on our Keeping It Real on Thursday mornings. So if you were interested in a little bit deeper practice into this, please go take a look at that on our YouTube channel. It's our Keeping It Real on Thursday mornings at 9 a.m. But today I want to talk about some of the different ways that we can practice ecosomatics in a more tangible way that will be very beneficial. So first thing is the easiest thing. It's something we do all the time. We did it the moment we arrived in this plane of existence, and it will be the very last thing that we do before we leave, and that is to breathe. And we breathe mostly unconsciously. We breathe without thinking about breathing, which is, really one of the nice things about it, because it happens as, it's that autonomic response where it happens without us taking thought for it, which is very beneficial for our human bodies because we can't go very long without a breath. But we can actually begin to breathe consciously and notice what's happening around us. More than just even like noticing smells, but notice how that our breath moving in and out is interrelated to our environment. When we breathe in our air, which is composed of many different elements. One of the biggest ones is nitrogen. It has oxygen in it. There's water in the air. There's all kinds of trace elements in there. But when we breathe out, we mostly breathe out carbon dioxide. And carbon dioxide is not a healthy thing for us to keep in our bodies, but it is fabulous for the environment around us. The plant life needs carbon dioxide to thrive. And so as we breathe out, the plant life around us, the trees and so forth, are taking that in. Notice that absolutely immediate relationship between the two, that we can't survive without the plants because they're producing part of the oxygen that we need. And the plants can't survive without us because we're producing the carbon dioxide. And of course, then there's the other relationship with it, that we use the plants to sustain us. We use the trees to create shelter and structures and so forth. And of course we also have food with the fruit-bearing trees and so forth. We use the plants that grow in the ground as our main source of food. And if it's not our food, then it's the food for the animals that we are also consuming. And so we are in total interrelationship with our environment through our breath. It's always in continuous motion, and it always links us to the world around us. So the other thing that we can do, as I was just talking about, is when we eat. And I know I've been guilty of this most of my life, we eat unconsciously. We really don't think much about the food that we're eating. How many of us have sat down and in front of the TV and started eating something, and before we know it, we've eaten a huge amount that we didn't even realize we were doing because we were doing it so unconsciously. But our food that we ingest then also becomes part of this cycle of life. We ingest the food. It comes into our mouths generally. Sometimes the first thing we notice is a sense of smell with the food. And then we take it into our bodies and put it into our mouths. And our mouths do a wonderful job of breaking it down. And then it goes past into our digestive system, and where it is broken down into the nutrients that our bodies need, and then eventually it is eliminated as waste product, which actually begins to help the environment also. When we eat consciously and really think about that, selecting our food consciously, are we getting food that is organic and free from the pesticides and chemicals that are not only harming our bodies, but are harming the environment around us? Are we eating food that is grown at the right time? Are we searching for food that is not seasonally available, or are we eating with the seasons? Are we eating the way that our ancestors would have done because they didn't have all of the ways of storing food and the transportation to get food from one place to another, or the methods that force food to grow when it's out of season for it? So are you eating with the seasons? Are you eating the food that is growing at that particular time? There's something very powerful about that, and it keeps us in sync with our environment, with the movement of our planet and so forth. So eating our food is a very practical way that we can experience our environment around us. The next thing is to actually go outdoors, to be outdoors. Every morning I go out and I sit on my patio. I have a little puppy, and so I take her out, and we spend about 30 minutes out there. And here in Las Vegas, our mornings are absolutely beautiful. So it's been about 75 to 80 most mornings. I'm usually out there around 5:36, and I just sit out there and notice the smells and the sounds. And we happen to have a lot of birds around us here, so watching the birds as they're flying and roosting on the roofs of the houses next to me, and looking for their food and so forth. And so I get to spend some time interacting with my environment, even though it's very passive, because I'm just sitting out there absorbing what's happening. There's something highly beneficial for me to be out in nature that way. I notice what I'm sensing, and I also begin to notice my thoughts and emotions and so forth that are happening around there. as I said, I have this little puppy, and so I just am overjoyed every morning to go out and play ball with her and watch her run. She happens to be kind of shaggy, so she gets that wonderful wind-blown look as she's running, and all her fur moves backwards, and it's such a delight to be out there in the environment and watch her experiencing it too. And so finding time to be outside. Another thing that we can do is actually begin to study our local ecology, study what's around us. I know when I was in college here at UNLV, one of the classes that I took was ecology, and it was so fascinating to do our labs because we went out into the environment, and we would mark off a foot square area and have to count the plants and life that we saw in that area, and just to see. And as we did that, we would move up the Las Vegas is a valley, and so we're down at the lower part, and then we would move up in elevation as we move further and watch the change in the plant life, till we get to a certain point. I remember being fascinated by the Joshua trees that are out here, and Joshua trees only grow from like 4,500 to 5,500. You can force one to come into your yard, you can plant it, but naturally they only grow at a certain elevation, and so you have to know, when you see those plants, you know that you're at that certain elevation to see them. And so it was really fascinating, and to watch the increased amount of animal life, insects and so forth, as we moved up in elevation down here in the lower part of the valley where it's so hot and the temperatures can be so extreme during the summer. There wasn't as much plant life, animal life. You didn't see as many insects and bugs and so forth around there, and you didn't see as many birds either, because of course the birds are eating the bugs, and but as we moved up in elevation, it became more populated. And so it was fascinating to watch and study the local ecology around us. I love going to like the wetlands and see what's happening here. You don't think of Las Vegas as having wetlands area, but it does. And of course we have our beautiful mountains with the trees and so forth that are up there that are just spectacular. So spend some time studying what's around us. Not only the ecology, but the geography of our area is fascinating. To be out there in the local geography and see what's happening. And again, I took classes on geography when I was here, and found quite a few interesting sites here in our valley. And so one that I'm fascinated with, which I can't wait till it's open, is they're creating a museum of Ice Age fossils, because there's been a huge discovery of Ice Age fossils in the northern part of our valley here. And so I can't wait for that to open. I believe the park is already open, but the museum is not quite yet. So, when that comes out, be out there, be involved in our environment, be studying it, learning about it, interacting with it. It's really a fabulous thing. Another thing that we can do along those same lines is to take a hike. We have got wonderful hiking trails here in our valley. And one of the sacred circles that we would love to start when we get into our new building is a hiking group, a group that goes out and takes some of these easier walks through beautiful places in our environment. If you've ever driven out to Red Rock or Valley of Fire to look at the beautiful structures of the red rocks that are around there, and there are wonderful hiking trails in both places. But when you connect with your feet on the ground, you begin to get a greater sense. And there's a whole movement in our world called earthing, which is where we actually connect with our bare feet on the ground. And it doesn't necessarily have to be just dirt. It can also be concrete or rock, something that's more of a natural product. You wouldn't want to do it on blacktop because that's not it's more of a man-made kind of thing, but concrete still has enough of the natural earth in it to connect you and ground you. And there's an interchange of the electrical charges that happens when we are connecting with the earth that way. When I first read about earthing, it was about walking in the grass and connecting with the grass, which is, brings us back to childhood, or running around playing barefoot in the grass if you lived in a place that had grass like that. And so connecting ourselves through this practice of walking and being with the earth, actually having our physical body connect with the earth. One of my favorite things to do is to walk on the beach. I don't particularly like the loose sand area, but once I get near the water where the sand is wet and hard packed, it is such an enjoyable thing. You know, you're walking on the cool earth. You've got the water coming up and washing over your feet. And of course, there's the smell of the ocean and the salt breeze that's around there and the coolness and all of that. Just a wonderful way to connect with the environment. Another thing that you can do is to be in the environment and create art. You know, sit outdoors and write. You're a poet or an author, sit out there and write. Journaling, what a wonderful experience that is. I like to draw. I'm an avid drawer, so I sit out sometimes in the morning and do my spiritual practice is to draw a mandala each morning. And so to be out there doing that. Painting, you can see all of the different people with their little portable easels and paint kits out near beautiful scenery painting. You know, get out indoors and dance or play music. Find what inspires you and see if that environment around you can actually amplify your inspiration. You know, the inspiration comes from within, but it can also be external. And so what are you doing to help yourself be more inspired to be out there? These are just a few different ways that you can begin to actively interact with our environment, actively practice this idea of ecosomatics, where we take the sensations of our body and we link them to the environment around us. Wonderful practices. Hope you find something here that you could do every day. Find a different practice to do every day. It doesn't have to be the same thing. And what I love about all of these is you don't need any special thing to do it. You just go out and be in the environment around us, noticing what's around you. So again, like I said, if you want a little bit more detailed or practice of these ideas of experiencing the environment that I've talked about, check out our Keeping It Real on Thursday mornings at 9 a.m. And as always, we share all of our services and meditations and wonderful spiritual uplifting music on our YouTube channel here. So please explore, take a chance to see what you can find there. Give us a comment. Let us know what you think about this. We're always happy to hear from you, and we will respond if we can. Depending on how you leave the comment, we'll be able to respond to you or not.